Hello, and happy Black History Month.
To start it off, we figured we'd start with what I distinctly remember is definitely one of my favorite DCOMs for a while.
Yeah.
But the fantastic Up, Up, and Away.
Yes, the DCOM classic. I think one of the first, superhero films starring an all-black cast, especially for, children's programming. That was live action, of course.
Yeah, I think I can say with a pretty definitely that this was probably the first black superheroes period that I encountered in my existence on this planet.
No, actually, now that I think about it, I would probably agree. Because the only other one I can think of that I watched regularly was Static Shock, and I think that came out after this because this came out in 2000.
I feel like that was after this.
Or Kazam.
Well, Kazam, he's a genie.
Yeah, he's also not a superhero.
Yeah, he was a genie, and it's Shaq. I knew who Shaq was. So, I was like, it isn't actually, it's Shaq being a genie. That's
right. I don't know why I always thought superhero, but I think it's just because he's so tall.
That's right. He's a big dude.
He's a big dude. But yes, this came out in 2000, so this was turn of the century. Actually,
end of the century.
Well, yes.
Yeah. But yeah. So I guess we can run right into this recap.
Yeah.
Fly right into it. I don't know, whatever pun you want to make up. I'm not feeling
up,
particularly
and
clever
away right into it
at this moment. But this film begins with the Earth Protectors, who we like to call environmental terrorists. That's what they are.
For real.
We see them sort of working on a new program, and we then go to the home of the Marshalls. Our main character is Scott Marshall. He is the middle child in a family of 5, with parents, but 3 children. He has an older brother, Adam, a younger sister, Molly, and his friend Randy actually shows up that morning. I guess they go to school, they ride to school together, and he has zucchini bread. It's not banana bread. Yeah, that was the whole thing. We had a whole discussion about zucchini versus banana bread.
Yeah, because I've never had it. I've never had zucchini bread.
And I have had it and deeply prefer banana bread.
Yeah.
So there that is. But he shows up with the zucchini bread that his mom made, but it's wrapped in aluminum foil. And we watch the family sort of freak out about the fact that it's wrapped in aluminum foil. He and his friend leave, and then we see his parents bury the foil in the backyard. So, immediately, for the untrained eye,
something is off.
Something is afoot.
Yes.
In the land of the Marshalls.
Yeah.
But so then we go to school with Scott. He's in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that, the Earth Protector man that we saw at the beginning of the film, he's at school. And kind of say, generally speaking, he's at school, and he doesn't he's essentially telling the kids are being told that he's gifted the whole school with computers, or the whole 8th grade with new computers, and the caveat is that they have to test out this new disk software situation that the Earth Protectors are developing. Which I don't know if you guys remember, but I actually do distinctly remember being younger and getting CD-ROM discs of educational things to go home and do, but they were coded in games. I remember having one that was all about nutrition and breakfast food in particular in elementary school. So that tracks. That's a thing that used to happen.
It's the way the man got to us.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do have qualms with how did you not know this man was a villain? Because let's just put this in perspective. How can an environmental software engineer in 2000 afford to buy an entire 8th grade computers? And continue to live and continue to develop software. It's not like he's running off into the foothills to, go live amongst the animals and drink, filtered urine. And
right.
Raise forage for berries. Like, that's not what happens, you know? So we should have had questions. Also, gelled hair, blue sunglasses. Like, come on.
Yeah, the aloha shirts.
Just know.
Yeah.
Like, it's very apparent. But anyway, he's there and he, like, gives them all the software. And we essentially see that, you know, we learn pretty quickly that he's actually quite nefarious, doesn't care about his partner Nina's dreams, who is the true environmental protector and, you know,
the one that made the program.
The one that made the program, the one with all the genius, but, you know, she has good intentions for it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care about that. Essentially, we learn that it's a mind control program.
Yeah.
And he attempts to use it. His name is Malcolm. He attempts to use it to rob a bank. And fails. It you know, it fails. It seems like it's working, and then it doesn't. And you know, Bronze Eagle and Warrior Woman go and they, you know, fight and they stop the bad guys. In theory, they actually don't manage to stop the bad guys. But in order for that to happen, like, we see Scott's dad. Scott's dad, his name is Scott Marshall. We see him, like, driving the kids to soccer practice, and he has to stop and get out of the car and, like, make them walk because he has to go do this crimes thing. So it's like, okay, we see family of superheroes.
Right.
Great. Like, dad's Bronze Eagle. And so, like, they fight these guys, but clearly the real bad guy gets away because we still see Malcolm running around with his little henchmen in Hawaiian shirts.
It's really what happens.
And then we go back, and Scott is, like, really into soccer. He's really concerned right now with becoming the captain of the soccer team. They're going to vote on them soon, and his sort of rival for that is this girl, Amy, who's also on the soccer team. It's a co-ed team, which, you know, cute, fun. We like that. And there's this whole conversation that's being had by his parents in the bleachers just about this idea that, you know, Scott might be normal, essentially. Like, he does, his 14th birthday is coming up. 14, no one has ever gotten their powers past the age of 14. His brother and his sister already exhibit their power. His brother's older than him and has his super speed.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll learn, like, he can do electric currents and such like that. His younger sister, Molly, has vision, x-ray vision, laser vision, etc. But Scott hasn't exhibited any powers, and his parents are sort of, you know, like, oh, Scott might just be
normal. Yeah.
Normal. And Scott kind of wants anything but, which makes sense. He's living in a family of superheroes. Like, you'd feel a little bit out of place and maybe weak and all of the things too. So we get, like, that sort of background. We do sort of intercut a bit between what's happening with them, with Scott and his family,
mm-hmm.
and what's happening with the environmental protectors, where, you know, Malcolm goes back and he tells Nina that he tried to rob a bank with it, and she is appalled, and he's just like, I was just trying to test it, which, again, like, girl, how you don't know, but whatever. And she essentially is like, it only works on adolescent minds. Like, adult minds can't, they're much harder to control.
Right.
Because they're sort of set in stone. Kids are pliable. That's why we have to get them early so that we can trick them into wanting to protect the environment.
Right.
So he tells Nina that the superheroes are onto him and that they might be a problem. That's what we end up with. We go back to Scott's family. Like, he's worried about his powers too. There's supposed to be a big party on his 14th birthday with, like, all of his parents' superhero friends to sort of celebrate him becoming part of the superhero crew now. And he overhears that his family's about to cancel the party, essentially. And his grandparents have just come down for it. And he just hears that they're about to cancel the party. And, you know, he's I guess he feels the sadness in his father's voice. And because of this, he decides to fake having superpowers so that at least he can have the party,
mm-hmm.
so that his parents won't be disappointed. So to do so, he first unscrews all of the bolts to the door, to one of the doors of the house. And does this thing where his dad, like, calls him in from outside. And he, like, waltz up to the door and, like, goes to open it, and the door just flies off the hinges into the back in one of the most horrible versions of special effects I've seen in a long time. But, it was excellent because it's so bad.
It's so bad. Like, the door goes the wrong way initially.
It really does. It just, like, it does this swoop that does not make any type of aerodynamic physical
It makes
sense.
none.
Like, it's a door. It's solid. It can't do that. But he fakes door, and everybody is like, oh, Scott, super strength. Although Molly is always suspicious. Let's just be very clear. She's like,
She's like, I want to see it.
And then he fakes flying, which again
with a soccer ball.
With a soccer ball. And it's really a great thing of people standing up looking at the sky trying to spot this child.
Like, oh, there he is. No, that's a plane.
And then he pretends to come back when he hears them. They're like, oh, I might go get him. Because he might not know what he's doing. And again, his sister's like,
I didn't see you
fly. She's right. and his grandpa is like, Steel Condor.
Yeah.
Is kind of like, so I saw these screws on the floor. Why are you lying? Exactly. Stop with your lies, little boy. And he's essentially like, please just let me do it. Like, let me do this till after the party. I don't want Dad to be embarrassed in front of all his friends. And his grandfather, because I'm sure that he is tired of raising children, is like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, fine. He's just like, fine.
Whatever, little man. Like, how much harm could it do? But then, Scott's doing his homework, and his dad sees him doing his homework, and sees that as he's doing his homework with this software, with this disc, that he is sort of blankly staring at the screen. We know that he's like being hypnotized by the program, but blankly staring at his screen, and his dad sort of has issues with that, but kind of what to be. And then he gets to school, and he changes before he goes to school. And when he gets to school, he doesn't realize it immediately, but we see it, and then later his brother points out to him, like, why are all of you in blue? That's weird. Mm-hmm. And then there's a moment where, like, all the 8th graders are wearing blue. All blue that day. It's kind of a great shot. Yeah. Of all of these children in blue. And then they all, like, go out and buy chocolate at the exact same time.
Right.
And we cut away and we see Malcolm there watching and being like, aha, we've got them to do what we want. This is excellent. And meanwhile, the superheroes are releasing a press conference where, they're saying they sort of examined the crime scene at the bank. They come to the conclusion that there's some sort of mind control that was being used, and that everybody should just be on the lookout, and that, we're going to catch the bad guys, which, the environmental protectors don't take very well. So they start hatching plans. In the meantime, Dad takes Scott flying to practice, lets him go. He clearly cannot fly, so this boy drops.
He just drops.
Damn near to his dad. It's kind of great. And his dad obviously has to save him. And his dad really is like, oh, yeah, you said it comes and goes, and you can't control it yet. Don't worry, we'll get there. Which is like, again, sir, like, y'all gotta stop with this. We'll get to it, but,
Yeah.
There are so many signs. So many signs. And in the meantime, the environmental protectors have come up with a plan to set a trap for the superheroes to come and get them. Now, the trap involves Nina being in a burning building, calling for help, essentially. The idea that the superheroes will come and help,
Save
and then
her.
then they'll be able to get them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of it. Or kill them. And Malcolm is like...
And they kind of wanted to kill Nina?
Yeah, they're like, if the superheroes don't come, we still get rid of Nina, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Because she'll have too many moral quandaries with, like,
it was a win-win for them.
Yeah. Anyway, this is happening on Scott's birthday, like, at the party, while the party's going on. And so it comes on the TV, and all the superheroes are like, that aren't his parents, they're like, wait, but we have a new superhero.
So he should go
a woman
save her.
In a burning building? That's a cat up a tree. Go save the woman. And his parents are like, yeah, go save the woman. So now he has to pretend in his warrior eagle outfit to go and save this woman. But he actually is entirely incapable, so we watch him ride his bike to this burning building.
Yeah.
We watch him try to
It takes him
climb
like
out
30
with
minutes
a,
to get
exactly, trying to climb out with a hose the whole time.
He gets her out.
He does get her out. In all fairness, he gets her out the building. It takes a lot, but he gets her out that building. But he still has to, in the end, be saved by his dad, who comes through. Like, you know, they would have dropped to their deaths if he didn't come through and save them. And then, you know, Scott is in a very deep amount of trouble for lying.
Right.
But he dropped his mask when he was in this situation, and Nina picked it up. So Nina now has this mask, and she uses facial recognition software to match it
to figure
specifically
out who it is.
to Scott. And so they design a specific design a specific software for him
and his family.
But before that can happen, there was another assignment where like all the kids had the software, and it said to steal money from their parents and bring it in to give to the environmental protectors. And Scott does it, right? But when he does it, but he doesn't remember he does it. The money is missing, and he's like, I didn't take it. But Molly uses her X-ray vision on his backpack and is like, I see that.
I see it in your backpack.
You a liar. And so his parents don't believe him that he doesn't have any recollection, which, why would they? You lied about having superpowers and almost got you and another human being killed.
Right.
So, yeah.
Thin ice. Very thin ice.
Exactly. So they're essentially just like, you know, you're banned from soccer. And he's like, please, dear God, not that. That's the only thing I have that I'm actually very good at. But they're like, no, we can't trust you. The whole shebang. And he tries to. So then he goes to school. He's sort of getting this like special attention from the environmental protectors. They work another like hypnotize on him in the school, where he's sitting there, you know, he's a sitting duck while they're grilling him, while they're interrogating him with questions about his family, their weaknesses, etc., etc. Like aluminum foil. So he comes out and he's like, to Randy's like, how was it? He's like, oh, I was only there for a few minutes. And Randy's like, you were in there for 2 hours, bro. And Scott's like, huh? And because he's a smart child, and because he has experience with the concept of villains, he's like, oh, mom, dad, peep this. I'm pretty sure that this software is the software you're looking for. It's the mind control device you're looking for. It's these people. I'm pretty sure that that's it. And he had been given a special software that was supposed to be a mind control device for those people, but he bumps into Amy on his way out, his soccer rival, and drops it, and they accidentally switch discs. So he takes home a regular one that doesn't have any mind control on it. She takes home the other one, and it says that, you know, they're supposed to do the homework with their parents. So she does that, like she gives it to her mom to look at, and her mom looks at it, and it tells her mom to rob a bank.
Right.
And then bring the money to the environmental protectors.
Right.
The Earth protectors. So she robs the bank, brings the money to the Earth protectors, and the next day at school, Randy's like, did you hear about Amy's mom trying to rob that bank? And he's like, what? That's crazy. And he just essentially realizes just like exactly what is going on, and sort of calls on his family to like help him, right? But when they get to the bank, sorry, not when they get to the bank, when they get to the headquarters of the environmental people, it's actually they're walking straight into a trap, and they set up a gigantic foil cage that just sucks all their energy essentially, and they have them bound with like foil bands and all of that. And the idea is that they're draining their energy far enough so that they're so weak that the mind control software will work on them, and then they can have them do a whole bunch of bad stuff so that the world will be like done with superheroes, so that then they can go around and do whatever the hell they want. Scott essentially realizes that something has to be wrong, and he and Randy and Amy, because it's Amy's mom, she's like, I'm coming with you. They decide to go and like see what's up and try to help, because he calls his grandfather, who says he's coming on the way. he really is on that CP time. He does not show up till the end of the film. He out here trying to fly. It ain't working. When he does fly, it's at a very slow pace.
He's flying at like 2 miles an hour.
He is old with some old bones, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you gotta know your limits.
Right.
Like, homie, you should have gotten in the car. But so Scott and Amy, like Amy and Randy, they head out to save the family. They form this plan to like distract them, and it's just really fun sequence. They use like all of the factory warehouse stuff to, lure the people away. The problem is they only set up a trap for like 2-3 people. It's like there are clearly like 10 to 12 people in this building at bare minimum. So, they do end up getting caught themselves. And Nina tries to help them because she feels bad and she realizes that Malcolm is a snake.
Is evil.
She's like, I should have known when I saw you drink out of that styrofoam cup. Which is that's what gave it away. But she tries to like switch the disc to keep it from like fully affecting their family. She's doing it in the plain view of everyone, so obviously the henchman is like, I'm pretty sure that's the wrong disc. And she gets, sort of locked up too. But then, sort of Scott and Amy sort of use their like soccer skills to essentially kick this soccer ball into this foil cage and knock this computer over. Now, mind you, when the children started doing that, instead of going and grabbing the children, Malcolm jumps in front of this cage to play goalie. Yeah. That is what he does.
That was a choice.
It was a choice, and it was obviously like, not Malcolm, right, this is why you don't design the software.
Right.
This is clearly why that's the case. The kick is, it's a goal. They knock over the computer. His parents have enough strength to, break open the foil cage. They get out. They beat that ass. Put Malcolm away. And then, they essentially, they win. They save the day. His older brother is erasing everybody's memory, including Amy, which sucks because they just found out that they like each other.
Yeah, Amy likes him.
Scott admitted it, and Amy's like, I like you too. And it was going to be cute. They were going to go to the dance together. Adam erased all that. Mm-hmm. So Scott got to start from scratch. He gets to keep Randy. Randy is like, please, I'm whack. No one's going to believe me anyway. I promise I won't tell nobody. And they're like, fine. I guess you ain't got no power, so you deserve to have a friend. Right. So they let Randy retain his memory. And then we see them on the soccer field, and it's a really cute moment where Amy votes, the soccer, essentially it comes down to a tie because Amy votes for him for soccer captain and he votes for Amy for soccer captain. So they're going to be co-captains together. And, it's this really sweet moment, and we walk away with this, this whole idea of there are many ways to be super.
Yeah. Yeah. So to get into the review portion, I think it's somewhat what we were talking about earlier. Just that there weren't very many black live action superheroes. I think one of the first ones that we did kind of see was Robert Townsend, actually, who plays the father in this, Jim Marshall, and he also directed it. He did a superhero film in 93 called Meteor Man, but I don't think it ever really got as big, that big. So this was kind of the next one for kids that he did. And I just feel it is important to see yourself represented like that in a more fantastical representation. Often people of color are left out of these specific types of genres, because for some reason we never exist in these worlds, which doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I think it's definitely important to see. It's Black people can be superheroes too.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it a bit with Twitches too. Well, Twitches also. Just
the second Twitches.
In the Twitches.
Yes.
Duality. That, there's a deep irony in it because of, the magical Negro as a trope existing.
Right.
And then at the same time, us actually not having full access into those genres, those spaces, as you said. But I do remember, like when I was a kid, I do remember sort of loving it as a superhero film. I think, like Chelsea, you kind of mentioned, like, like the blades and the shafts, and like there were other sort of iterations I think that existed of like sci-fi black, like, or just like black people inside. But even then, it's a very specific type of character.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I could in my head, like Blade and Morpheus occupy the same sort of character image space, for example. But I think it's interesting in this particular film, and like Robert Townsend, he directed this, and I think it's interesting that the villain in this, or sort of the big bad, is mind control.
Yeah.
Like in a film about a black superhero family, like that is the big bad that they're facing.
Literally the man.
Like, I mean, it's just when you're a kid, it was like when I was younger, it was just all right, like that's easy. And like again, we talked about this too, about how hypnosis was a big thing.
It's a very big thing
for whatever. I really don't know why, but it was like a big deal when we were younger. And
I don't know if everybody just saw something from Dave. Did David Copperfield do like a special in like '96 or something? And everybody was just like, oh, you know what? We need to put that in all the movies now.
All the movies, like it was in psychiatry rooms. It was all over the place. But and I guess there's also the other aspect of people were very worried, and I guess still are to a certain extent, of screen time in children.
Yeah,
like that's just a general. So I think I read it through that lens when I was younger, like screen time in kids. I remember people saying, you let Nina watch so much TV. You know what I mean? Like that sort of perspective on it. But looking at it now, like in this time, in this day and age, it feels a lot more, just this idea of like willpower, and the fact that like we're still doing it, like we're still fighting for willpower, like black people in particular, but many people on this earth, like we're just still sort of fighting to be allowed to think and do for ourselves, and express what we think and what we feel and what we would like to do for ourselves.
Right.
It's so that just that element of control, and Robert Townsend is a black man in America, so I can't imagine that is something that he didn't pick up on, was inside of this material.
Yeah, and I think even the idea, like in this one, they didn't really have, the superheroes were basically the police. So it was like there were police, but the police very much seemed to be just like kind of the cleaners almost, where it was like they're not actually the ones that are doing whatever the fix is, but they're just kind of like cleaning up
detective
afterward.
Work even. They weren't working like with a cop. It was just them.
Like I think the few times you see the cops are like during the press conference, and then like after they're done trying to rout out all the baddies in the initial like bank robbing scene.
Yeah.
And they're like asking questions to Malcolm and his ilk, which is basically useless. But it's like they're kind of like the cops / detectives in this specific world, and it's like a normal thing. Is interesting that they're like the vigilantes. But then even also the fact that they're masked, which I feel like we got a very good, like, you can see like I think a great older version of this in Watchmen, in terms of like the masks and like being black and being masked up, and like what that even means on a deeper level. Obviously not immediately applicable to this, but they are literally masked superheroes that everybody seems to not recognize for some strange reason. Even though they all live in the same town, and I'm like, you definitely know. That's one Warrior
of those, Woman's
hips.
That's just one of those like comic book superhero things that we just all agreed to just put that, to
put it to the side.
Put it to the side. It's like when it's like that moment like in Incredibles where they have that great nod to it where Edna is like, no capes. It's like there are certain things that we all just like, fine. Spandex, fine. Like, okay, like, that's the most effective thing to fight in. Is it?
No.
Okay, fine. we sort of just let it rock. But yeah, I think there is, I don't know, like it's interesting because I think that this is one of those films, and we've talked about it a little bit before, Chelsea. I know, like, just between us, but this came out in 2000, right? So this is happening in an era where black television, right, in particular, black television, black film too, but black television in particular, I think people have we remember it very fondly, as is seen, with how well, the release on Netflix of, the UPN
of everything.
suite.
Yeah, like of everything.
How well that was received. But a period of time where we sort of see it as like the black heyday of television, but not just because like there are black shows on TV, but because it's this idea of like these are stories that are being told where everybody's black, so obviously blackness has to be a part of it. It is told through a black lens, but it isn't necessarily about being black.
Yeah.
And I think that this falls into that category. This is actually like it's about superheroes. And it's about a superhero family, and it's about what does it mean to be normal in the family of heroes, which obviously is an allegory, a metaphor for the real world of, like, what does it mean? Like, your definition of exceptional, or the definition of exceptional, is mutable, and it is relative, and it's always going to depend on the situation. And you might have great powers in one place and be very weak in another place.
Right.
Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. It's just a matter of using them appropriately. Like, that's what the story is. It's just a black family.
Right.
So like there's there's that representation that like I look at it with and all of that. But at the same time, it's weird because it occupies a space in my head where, I always loved this film. I always knew it was a black film in terms of cast and all of that. And yet, weirdly never, it's not like a quote unquote black film.
Yeah, it's like
for me, it doesn't occupy
where
that
they
space.
happen to be black.
Yeah, but it's in a good way. It's in a fundamentally good way.
It's clearly It's an intentionally done one. It's not one where it's like, oh, we wrote everybody as white, but now we know that it's more PC if we just turn everybody black. Like, it wasn't. It was, or even if it was,
I mean, it could have been,
but I think they also put it in the hands of a black man to direct it, which added certain things to it. And then I think just the casting brought it like over. Like, they have Sherman Hemsley as like the grandfather who played like George Jefferson. Like, it's just like certain like nods to things just because of how they casted it as well. Where it's like it does feel authentically black, but not like OD.
Yeah.
Like,
and even
we're black, y'all. We're black, y'all.
Yeah.
Or like, we black, we're black, y'all. Shout out to CB4.
I mean, it is, and even Robert Townsend was on one of those shows. He was on what, The Parenthood?
Yeah, he was on Parenthood. He's the father on Parenthood.
Yeah. And like I used to love that show when I was younger.
Him and Reagan Gomez. Shout out to her.
Good times, good times. Ha! Didn't mean to do that, but it works.
Yes.
But yeah, like it just occupies that space, and I think it's nice to revisit that now, because I don't think, like, as much as we are in an age of sort of representation in theory, or like attempting to make room for representation, I do still think that we are lacking. That's something that I miss. Yeah. And I think is not as present. Like, stories that don't have to be explicitly engaged with the, like, minority or disenfranchisement or, oppression of whatever group is being represented in that moment. Right? Yeah. Like, as much as I love Blackish, it's called Blackish. Like, that's what it's about. Like, yeah, it is about like that. It's about a conversational space, and I do miss sort of having options that are not necessarily conversational. It's just a story.
Right. Well, or just like they could also exist for other people.
Yeah.
But they are black. Like, it's like
exactly
like you could do like even besides the name, but like a Moesha. Like that is like a classic teen like drama or whatever, like her being black.
It's
Yes,
like
it comes
Blossom.
up.
It is
Yeah,
just like Blossom.
it
Like
is.
it's the same.
It comes up sometimes, but it's like, but that's not the everyday story. Is not I'm a young black girl in Lamert Park and like let me like write out the. It's like no, she's just going through her normal like teen
how to be black
trials and tribulations. Like
yeah, and I think that what's important about having those types of stories is that they. And this is not an either or, like
no,
it all should exist.
You want both, ideally. You want
and more. I want
right.
things that I haven't considered. You know,
yeah,
I would really like a lot more fantasy space. Thank you.
Right.
But you know what it does is it also sort of reinforce or depicts the idea that like these people, like whatever people it is, it's black people, and it is Black History Month, so black people, but in theory, whatever people it is are people, and they lead the same types of lives fundamentally that all other people are leading.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've brought this up a few times on this podcast, but this is a great film to sort of drive it home one more time. And just that you can like. Yeah, being black in America is hard. Mm-hmm. Being a black woman in America is really hard. But when I was 13, I wasn't necessarily concerned with being black in America. I was concerned with pimples and when I was going to get my braces off.
Mm-hmm.
And figuring out sorry,
like what boy likes you,
and for
getting my homework done.
Yeah, and like this is an example of I had permed hair. Learning how to wrap my hair at night by myself, right?
No,
that's like weird because that is something that is coded in blackness, right? But it is what it is at its fundamental core. Learning how to do my hair,
mm-hmm.
right? Which all 13-year-old girls are learning to do,
mm-hmm.
right? Learning how, like all 13-year-old children are learning how to peacock, how to present, how to groom, right? They're all figuring that out because that's the space and the time when you do that. So it's just gonna look a little different in different scenarios with what phenotypes you have and with what is beautiful around you. Like what's considered the societal beauty around you and like the social beauty around you. So like, I really appreciate this film in the context of sort of blackness.
Yeah.
For that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's my like my black lens on Up in a way.
I think we both really like this, like the fact that they only eat like greens. So it's really like just like a cherry on the top. I think just something nice. So, like because when we say greens, like we mean like
little greens.
broccoli, kale,
pudding. Was it
like,
spinach ice cream?
Like they literally have to eat greens, and that's the only way that they can like that's how they maintain their powers and maintain like themselves.
Yeah, it's a good like eat your vegetables, kids.
Yeah, but without it being like over the top, because they don't even really like. They mention the names, but there's never a moment where they're like, well, like they treat it as something that the kids like enjoy and they love.
Yeah. Which is nice. And I also love that like on the flip side, like it's just like it's a literary thing. Like I love this like, like I've been foiled literally. It's like I enjoy that. Like that's such a not deep. It's not deep at all, but it's such a like writer's joke.
Yeah.
Like it's a type of thing that like a grammar nerd loves.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my goodness, their weakness is a foil. It's a piece of foil. Brilliant. I ate that up. That was a very fun thing.
And yeah, I think they were, to your earlier point, very like ahead of the curve when it came to like how they were treating the environmental people. And just like the degree to which they were very like Nina and not even the rest of them didn't care about that, but Nina really cared about like the planet over like people, because she's like, we need to make all these kids like care, like their parents' generation is basically already fucked, so we don't have to worry about them, but the kids that's how we get the next generation to take care of the planet, and like that's what matters. So that like the means of me doing this through hypnosis and them no longer having willpower and self-control justifies the end. And it's like, you can't decide that for people, ma'am.
You really can't. But at the same time, at the same time, it is funny to look at this and look back and see how, like, you know, like there was a period of time where like tree hugger was a very consistent term being used. You know, like, oh, they're hippy dippy stuff and like all that stuff.
Love the word
And
hippy
how
dippy.
like it's one of those things that, you know, fast forward, you know, 20-ish years, and oh yeah, they were very right. Like, and here's the thing: the ends absolutely don't justify the means. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's why dictators are always bad, even
Right.
when they're doing good things. Like, even if, let's say, the economy is thriving, like, you're still a dictator.
Right.
It's not like,
People don't have
don't do that. You know, you gotta let them make their own decisions.
Because you're not God. Like, you're not, well, not like a literal God, but you guys know what I mean. Like, you're not like, that's not your place to tell anybody what they can and cannot do.
Yeah.
It goes back to the ideal. Don't be that entitled.
Even if you do know better, it's still not your place to do
not
that.
Your place.
Not somebody that's grown or not your child.
Right.
Those two things are important. But yeah, it is because she is right. Like, she is right, and even the thing about like getting the next generation like is right. Like, thank God that we recycle.
Yeah.
You know, like it's still a little too late, but there are things that sort of still can be done to slow down the
We've like low-key fixed the ozone layer. Not fully, but it's gotten better.
Yeah, you know.
It was really bad in like the 80s and 90s.
Remember watching DJ Tanner hairspray herself.
Yeah.
In Full House. And I remember being like 7 and being like, that's not okay.
Because we learned, but that's the thing.
Because we learned it.
We got it ingrained at such a young age,
Yeah.
and it's like, you don't need to mess up the ozone layer. Even if you didn't know what the ozone layer was, you're like, well, I don't want to mess with that. Or like
save the rainforest was a whole thing.
Yeah.
You know.
There's just certain things that you, like, it's like every generation learns that the previous ones didn't, because you know more. Yeah. Know better, do better, you know? And teach better.
Exactly. It's just, you know, we don't need, like, don't use mind control.
No.
But it is just very funny to see how and that does turn out to be how it goes. Now, even in real life, you know, like, don't beat people over the head with things, per se. Like, be persistent, stand in your truth, say what you gotta say.
We don't need more PETAs.
But, but don't, and that doesn't, like, nobody here's for the cruelty to animals. Nobody's here for cruelty, period, right? But, you know, don't throw blood on people. Like, don't do that. Yeah. That's just unacceptable. That should be obvious. But since it's not, don't do it. Yeah. Don't do it.
All you can do is equip people with information. What they choose to do with it is their own decision.
Now, you can continue to talk. I am all here for not shutting the fuck up. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I clearly like to speak. I am all here for just talking till your voice is sore, till you literally don't have one anymore. But, you know, in terms of beyond that, you know, you get into very dicey moral territory, and that's coming from somebody who is very quick to drop a relative bomb on you, and, you know, very quick to look out for self-interest. So, if I'm saying that, it's probably best to just, like, if I'm saying it's a bad idea to try to literally control people, just trust me, it's a bad idea.
Just generally not a good idea. Because, again, not your decision. Like, again, it just goes back to the point, like, stop being so entitled. Like, people just have to stop being this entitled to think that everybody needs to think like them and all of that. But, yeah. Yeah. I completely agree.
And then I think, like, the other thing, like, that I like that this showcases, well, there are two things. There's one, and it's this idea of, like, you know, I just like, you know, this poor baby caught up in this lie. And he's real caught up in this lie, and, like, does almost get somebody
killed
because of it,
including himself.
including
Two
himself.
people.
But then there's also and so like move with integrity. There's
Mhm.
that, and that's always a good lesson to learn. But then there's the other side of it where it's like, parents sometimes, like, they're not pushing him, I wouldn't say.
No.
But sometimes you want to believe something too much, and it blinds you.
Yeah, and your kids can feel it.
And they know that. They know when everyone knows when that's happening.
Right.
Like, sometimes we want to believe things really, really hard, and it makes us act in foolish and just generally, potentially unsafe, potentially harmful, not just unsafe, but like very harmful ways. And at the end of the day, that helps no one. That's good for no one. So, just generally speaking, trust your like, again, that whole trust your instincts situation, but also, don't lie to yourself. And it does come back to that moving with integrity. Like, just, it's easy. Life is easier, and it is better to make a mistake and apologize for it at the end of the day than to move in dishonesty and hurt other people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Just as general rules.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think a lot of, like, it's like, this whole movie was like, this is why you don't lie. Like, this is just like a poster child of like why you do not lie, because his lies almost got him and this woman killed, and then, I guess you could say, yes, arguably eventually led them to what they needed to get to stop the stuff that was going on. But still, yeah, it was just like, it all could have been avoided. And I think he just had a fear of, it's not even failure, but a fear of just not living up to what the rest of his family, like what was normalcy for the family. Even if it didn't apply to like everybody, but it's like in his circle, like everybody's a superhero. So if I'm not a superhero, something's clearly wrong with me. And his dad ends up telling him, like, you don't have to have superpowers to help people. Like,
yeah,
you can do that just as you are. Like, you don't need anything special for that other than just having like a giving heart or whatever, and not lying.
Yeah, and I mean,
telling your truth.
At a very basic level, at a like sort of deeply linguistic level, like super, it literally just means above. Like, that's what the word, that's the Latin word. It has come into meaning as super, as it's, a loftiness has been built into the connotation of the word, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is a sort of metaphysical loftiness. But the word super, it literally just means above. And I think in that frame of mind, it's, again, it goes back to that strengths and weaknesses sort of thing. There are always going to be things about every person that are super, right? That are like above the other things about them, or above others around them, right? There are always going to be certain things you're capable of doing that are sort of above others, or above other things in yourself. But that also means that there's always below, and there's always below within you as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, again, like, it's all just, like, it's all relative.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, I'm kind of curious, Chelsea, like, if you had a superpower, what would it be? If you could choose anything.
I actually don't know. I mean, I feel like the running really fast one would be kind of nice sometimes, because then you could be in like two places at one time, essentially.
Could you? I mean,
no, but like, not literally,
like, yeah, but you could,
like, you could
traverse spaces.
You could traverse spaces in a quicker fashion, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, in honor of Black History Month, I have like a black one.
Mm.
And I feel like, yeah, like it's a general human one, but it's like a black one. Like, it's very weird, but like literacy, like, I wish I could give literacy
to
people. And when I say that, I don't mean just like reading words. I mean like analyzing it and like understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's something that we like, it's like the trajectory of people of the Black diaspora sort of since the large European encounter that resulted in transatlantic slave trade, like that literacy has 110% been a humongous tool of our oppression. And so, like, I would just love the ability, like, I would love for us all to have the ability to, like, read deeply. Not saying that, like, getting the same conclusions or reading the same things. Like, I don't mean anything like that. I just mean, like, literally just having the ability to, like, pick up something and, like, go through it and decipher it and parse it out. So that's, like, my black one. But then my general one, my personal sort of selfish one, is I would love to be able to, like, assess people's level of competency when I meet them. You know? Like like maybe like a number above their head.
Oh no.
Not IQ, but something that's like a combination of like IQ, EQ, all of the assessments that I just call general competency.
Nina's elitism is showing.
It comes out every now and then.
With both of these.
Yeah, that's true. It's very, very true. I did talk about above. That did happen. I kid. But yeah, those would be mine. I think it'd be nice. Not even because I don't want to have to deal with people sometimes. I'd like to be able to walk away.
I feel that
before I get too deep. But so do you think you'd show this to your kids?
Oh yeah, this was a fun one. I used to love this one when I was a kid. I would look forward to it coming on every February for Black History Month. And I just always enjoyed this kind of. I never really personally have gotten too deep into like the now really big like DC and like Marvel universes. I don't know, I just never really got into them. But I always enjoyed this type of superhero film. Like I loved this. I used to love Sky High. Like I think like the lighter like teen fare, which is weird because I typically like darker films, but I don't know, like the ones as of late haven't really like captured my personal attention.
Real quick, obviously we probably should have done this at the top, but obviously also just a nod to Chadwick and R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P.
I know that that's a death that really affected a lot of people.
The Black superhero legacy with Black Panther.
Yeah, and it's it's deeply appreciated, obviously.
Yeah.
But
that's still the only Marvel movie I've seen.
Yeah,
was Black Panther.
Yeah. I mean, I feel you on that. Like, there is a certain charm to the sort of ease of this that I really like. And it's very, like, it's reminiscent to me of, like, I used to watch, like, the old, like, I think it's the 60s Batman. Mm-hmm. And, like, the movies and stuff like that, where it was just, like, it was when comics were considered lighter, and while I'm happy that they are being taken seriously as, literary objects,
mm-hmm.
And those stories are being looked at and evaluated as like true literary pieces. Watchmen is a literary masterpiece, like
mm-hmm.
It just is. Doesn't matter that it has pictures. You can argue that pictures were the first literary masterpieces if you want to, and it's true.
We love a graphic novel.
But yeah, like, well, I do love that it's getting that recognition. There is something just very comforting and, like I said, so easy, like really easy about just like simple, like, I guess now campy, or like now if someone did a style like that, we'd consider it campy.
Yeah.
So just like throwback, just running around, saving women from burning buildings, and your villain is leaving literal calling cards everywhere and riddles and all of that. Like, it's fun, and it makes sense, like, why there's a generation, like, there are generations who are like in control now who grew up with that and then learned to see like the literary in that, and yada yada. I think I would show it to my kids for no other reason than that.
Yeah.
But it's nice that there's this added layer of like, it's Black people in a space doing something that we don't see very often. Again, this is the type of thing that I hope when I have kids is commonplace enough that they're not gonna feel like it's novel and it's special. It is special, but like they're not necessarily going to be able to connect with it that way. It's kind of my hope.
Right.
That it's so common that they don't they won't immediately get like why it's such a big deal to me. And I do think it's, especially if you have kids that sort of incline naturally towards superheroes, it's, at least right now, I would say that it's harder to, for much younger kids, for kids who are like 6, 7, like Marvel I can see how some people think Marvel is a bit too adult for them.
Yeah.
And a bit too grown up for them, and it is nice to have something that is still live action, because like Teen Titans and stuff like that is animated.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have something that is live action, but is maybe more age appropriate, depending on your thoughts on what is appropriate for smaller children to watch, things of that nature. So definitely would be a fun film to revisit in later years.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And I don't think you can go wrong with Robert Townsend and Sherman. Like, the cast is also just crazy.
Yeah, it's actually it's really good. Like, I love Randy. I actually love his little best friend Randy, and I loved him when I was little. And I've loved watching his career, like the actor's career, because he's played that character a lot, and he's always quite entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he's in? He's in Just Friends. He plays Ryan Reynolds' little brother in that.
Is that a movie?
You've never seen Just Friends?
Never heard of it.
It's Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris.
Oh, okay.
And what's her name? She was a big deal in the 2000s, but I forget her name now. But no, it's fantastic. We'll watch it one day.
Yeah, no, I've never heard of that one.
It's quite funny, but
yeah,
bad but funny.
I mean, happy Black History Month.
Yeah, and
with that, and
we will catch you with another Black Disney Channel original movie next week.
Yep, we're moving on up, guys. Up, and away. Fish don't fry in the kitchen. Beans don't burn on the grill. Bye.